This is Chris Kill, which is a simple demonstration of our peak fitness postural testing. All right, our postural testing is the first step in our client evaluation. All right, the first thing we want to do with the client is have them take their shoes off. We're going to take them through. I'm going to tell them I'm going to take them through a few simple tests. Just want to work to check on their strength and their posture, and then at the same time, this will just kind of give us some general ideas of what we need to work on and sort of the homework that we're going to give them. All right, so the first test that we're going to perform with this is what is called the overhead squats. All right, so with this, what I'm going to ask the client to do, once again, they're going to take their shoes off. All right, they're going to point their feet in line with mine. All right, so I'll ask them to stand in front of me here, feet spread about shoulder width apart. The stick is above my head here. What I'm going to ask the client to do, I'm going to demonstrate first, is simply squat down as far as they can comfortably. Try to get their butt down by their heels and come up. All right, now obviously I'm going to give them 3 chances to do that. Obviously I'm not getting down that far. All right, so what I'm going to ask them to do then would be to put the heels on the board. Okay, this is our white FMS scoring board here, and try that again. Okay, so in that case I was successful. All right, I saw that I could do it. I only need 1 rep for that. All right, now the way we're going to score this is if the client can do it without any heel lifts, without any compensation, they get up and down well. Okay, so their torso doesn't fall forward, the stick stays straight above their head, and they come straight down on the first 3 tries, then they get a 3. Okay, if they do it with some compensation, but they can still complete the movement, all right, then we're going to give them a 2. So, for example, if I can put my heels up on the board and that clears this up, okay, then I get a 2. Okay, however, if I continue to fall forward, or if I'm not coming straight up and down like I'm doing now, all right, then I get a 1. Okay, that tells me that I can't complete the movement at all, so I'm going to score them 1. Okay, so it's anywhere from 1 to 3, 3 being with perfect form, 2 being with some compensation, and 1 being not being able to perform the movement at all. Okay, you might not understand everything that you see during the test, but simply mark it down and move on to the best of your ability. All right, now moving on to our next test, we have what is called the shoulder mobility. Okay, with that, I'm going to ask the client to hold their hands out like this. Okay, I'm going to measure the length of their palm here from about this kind of the second line here in my my wrist. Okay, right below where my hand starts, all the way to the tip of the longest finger here. Okay, so in my case, that's around 7 inches. Okay, once I measure that, I'm going to ask the client to place 1 hand on the bottom, 1 hand at the top of their back here, and get them as close together as they can. All right, what I'm looking for here is whether or not how far apart the 2 hands are. All right, if they are more than 2 hand lengths apart, okay, so in my case that would be 14 inches, then the client's going to get a 1. Okay, if they're between 1/2 and 2, or if they're between 1 and 2 hand lengths, okay, so that would be 7 to 14 inches. Okay, my client gets a 2, so I can do it just with some compensation. If I'm right together from less than 7 inches, then I get a 3. Okay, so that's kind of how we score that. And as well, we're going to score the top hand. All right, so the hand on top here, this hand, the one that's waving to you right now, would be the hand that I'm scoring. Okay, so that would be my left side. All right, now I'm changing over. I'm going to score my right side. Okay, so that would be anywhere from 1 to 3, kind of based upon what we're looking at there. The other consideration to make is that if the client has pain with any of these movements at all, okay, I want you to write a 0 there. Okay, so if the client has pain, immediately move on to the next test, they get a 0. All right, moving on, our third test in our postural testing would be what is called a inline lunge. Okay, so with this, I'm going to ask the client to put 1 toe on the 0 here on our scoring board. 1 heel is going to be on the 18. Okay, I'm going to place the stick on my back here. Hand of the back foot is going to be on top. All right, now I want to try to take my back knee and touch it to my front heel here. So I'm tapping down, I'm pausing, and I'm coming back up. All right, what I'm looking for here is whether or not the client can get down there at all, whether or not they're able to connect the back knee to the front foot, whether or not the stick stays on the client's back. All right, if I see them leaning forward, it's coming off, okay, then that's a compensation. Okay, and as well, whether or not the client is coming forward onto their toes. So for example, if they're doing this, okay, where the heel is coming off the board, right, then that's also a compensation. Right, if they can get down there, if I can touch my knee down to the board, okay, then I get a 2. If I can do that with perfect form, meaning the stick stays on my back, I'm able to touch my back knee and my front foot, then I get a 3. All right, if I can't make it down at all, then I get a 1. Okay, once again, if that's painful, then that's a red flag, and then, you know, we've got a problem, and, you know, we're moving on from that test. All right, so from there, our next test, all right, would be what's called a hurdle step, and I got to get a hurdle. I'll be right back. Thanks for waiting. Okay, so for the hurdle step, what I'm going to do is put my feet together here. All right, I'm placing my feet under the hurdles. Stick is on my back. All right, I want to attempt to step straight over, tap in front, and come back together. All right. The things that we're looking for here is whether or not the client is side bending to the side as they step over, all right, or if they can get the legs straight over. All right, if they can reach over, tap in front, come back across while maintaining balance, then they've completed the test. All right, if they can do it without moving their waist, see, I can only get to here without side bending, then they get a 3. Right? If you see some bend in their waist or the foot doesn't come straight over, then they're going to get a 2. Okay, so that's kind of an indication of what we're looking for. Then, you know, there again, obviously, if it's painful, then we move on. Okay, so our next test would be a active straight leg raise test. All right, with the active straight leg raise test, I'm just going to ask the client to lie on their backs here. Backs of the knees are over the board, flexing their toes back towards me. Starting with the left leg, I'm going to raise it up as high as I can comfortably, trying to keep the leg straight. Okay, what I'm looking for here is whether or not the leg can clear the stick. Okay, so I'm gonna place this. I'm going to place my stick midway between the base of the knee and the base of the hip. So right around here. Okay, so actually halfway between the board and the base of my hip. Okay, and I'm looking for whether or not they can clear that stick. So I cannot do that. All right, so knowing that, I'm going to place the stick here on the core board. All right, now I am able to clear that, so I get a 2. Okay, the other thing that I want to look at is the down leg. Okay, is the down leg turning out as I'm lifting up, or is it able to stay straight? Okay, oftentimes when we see the client compensating, the other leg will start to come off the board, or the foot will start to turn out. Okay, either of those things would be a compensation. So if the client can lift up with no problem beyond the stick on, you know, the first try here, then they get a 3. All right, if they're exhibiting any of the compensations I just described, they get a 2. And if they can't clear that stick at all, their heel cannot clear the stick, excuse me, they get a 1. Okay, so moving on to our next test. Okay, we have what is called a trunk stability push-up. All right, with the push-up, I'm going to ask the client to place their hands on their head like this. Okay, so they're making antlers. Space their hands out and perform a push-up. All right, now if it looks like the client is kind of arching down and they're coming up like that, all right, that's a compensation. Okay, and if they can't do it at all, I'm going to have them bring their hands down to their chin. Okay, the same rules apply. I'm going to ask them to space it out, and I'm going to see whether or not that clears up that compensation. All right, if it does, they get a 2. If they still can't do it, they get a 1. Okay, obviously, most of the time, our female clients are going to be a little bit weaker, so we're going to make an exception in their case. All right, we're just going to perform one version of this. I'm going to have them start down with their hands by their clavicle here, or by the base of the shoulders. Spread the hands out. Same rules apply, all right? If they cannot do a push-up from that position, they're going to get a 1. If they can do a push-up, they get a 3, okay? Now for our last test, all right, this is simply either going to be a 1 or a 3. All right, the client is going to be over the board like this. All right, the board is going to be under the hands and feet here, and what I'm looking for is whether or not the client can pull the knee to the chest, and extend out. All right, I just want to see if the client can touch their knee to the opposite elbow over the board and extend out on both sides. All right, if they can, all right, they get a. We're going to score a 3 or a 2 for the front side. So for the front hand here, that would be a 2 on the left. If they can do it on the right, or on the right hand there, it would be a 2 on the right. Okay, so and that's kind of a summary of, you know, what we are looking at there. All right, so we'll just talk about how we can score this now. All right, so the way this works is, out of all of the tests here the client can get a possible 20 out, anywhere from 1 to 20, okay, based upon their scoring. All right, now if they get a 3 on everything, right, and and a 2 in the last test, that would be 20 points. All right, so we're simply going to add those up, okay, and write down whatever the score is in our FMS score column. All right, so we've got a 20 here. And as well, all right, we're just going to write the client's name at the top, whatever it may be. All right, and then put the date for their score, for their test here. So I would put 8/25, and I just go down the line. So I have an overhead squat. It just talks about what to look for. I have a leg lift. Again, it talks about what to look for. The leg lift being the thing that we just did on the board there. Okay, we have shoulder mobility. That's where you put your hands behind the back. Hurdle step, inline lunge, the thing on the board where you're lunging down. All right, and then we finish up on the floor with the trunk stability push-up and the rotary stability, or rote stab. Okay, once again, I just add the scores and I list them below. Okay, so the idea is the higher the client score, the better they're moving, the better they're moving around, and the better we're looking at their posture. But once again, just perform those tests, write the score down in their on their board there, and then we will interpret the results as necessary.